Hi guys, this is Stephanie, and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. So today I am doing the Chris Pratt book tag in honors of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 just being released. This was originally done by Riley Marie. I will link the original one down below. Now I did add a little bit to this. This tag's a few years old. It's probably, I'm gonna guess like 3 years old or so, because they didn't have some of his more recent movies on there. So I added a few extra movies because I just wanted to be more up to date, and I like Chris Pratt and I like his movies, so I'm kind of excited to add some frosting to Miss Marie's already wonderful tag. So the first one is Guardians of the Galaxy. Choose your favorite character ensemble. And for this I chose Beauty Queens by Libba Bray. This is a wonderful ensemble cast of characters, and they're all very, very well developed. It's kind of like Lost, but with beauty queens. They get stuck on this island, and they're just a bunch of beauty queens, and you know, they don't know how to start a fire, and they don't know this and this and this, and it's incredibly funny. It's pretty dark too, but at the same time, like, I just laughed most of the time reading this book. I found it insanely amusing. I love Libba Bray's writing. She's really good at developing the characters. And there were like, I think I counted like 12 characters, like Miss Nebraska, Miss Ohio, Miss whatever. And you actually get to develop each of the characters, which is pretty good writing because most of the time that does not happen. So props to you, Libba Bray. This is definitely my favorite ensemble cast read. Next is Andy Dwyer. From Parks and Rec, name a character that you cannot help but love despite their flaws. And for this, I went with Gatsby from The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, this is a book, I think the first time I read it, I was in middle school, and then I read it again in high school. And this is actually my copy from high school. I didn't steal it. They were getting rid of them at the end of the semester and ordering new ones. So I got to keep this one, which is great because I have like notes and stuff in it and passages highlighted and things. This is a book I've read numerous times, and I love like the philosophical discussions that go on with this book because there's just so many different aspects, so many different ways to look at it. But Gatsby is a super flawed character. The way that he loves Daisy, the way that he just sees her in a perfect light, despite the fact that she clearly does not love him back. And oh, it's a book I could discuss for days, but he would probably be my favorite flawed character. Next is Anna Faris. Who's your favorite OTP? And for those of you that don't know, OTP is your one true pairing. And I'm going to go with Chris and Carsdale from The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. There are a lot of relationships in this book. There are a lot of true pairings, you could say. But this is the one that I just love. Like, I love him. I love her. I love them together. They better each other. And most of the couples in this are actually pretty great. But these two they just captured my little heart. And every time they were on the page, I was like, what's going on? What is this? What? And they're my faves. Next is Chris Evans. What would be your favorite BrOTP or friendship? For this one, I am going to go with The Dresden Files, which is a series, book series. And I'm going to go with Bob and Harry Dresden. So Harry is a wizard, like a real actual wizard, not a magician or anything like that, like a wizard, who lives in the modern world. And he likes to help people, so that's what he does. And I think it takes place in Chicago. I think they all take place in Chicago. There's about 15 books in the series. I think I've read 13 of the 15 books. And his, companion, buddy, is Bob. Bob is a skull that has been enlightened with knowledge with a spirit that has like knowledge over hundreds of years. And he is like snarky and funny. And I would have to say it's the best friendship in those books. It's one of the best friendships in almost any of the books. The first 3 books are a little rocky, but if you can push through those, it gets pretty good along the way. Next is Jurassic World. Who is a BA character? Now, I feel like I didn't go with the obvious answers here. I instead went with Elisa from Girl of Fire and Thorns by Rae Carson. I'm going with her because I feel like she wasn't BA at the beginning, but she became that. Like along the way in this 3-book series, she has a journey where she discovers who she is, and she changes on the outside, she changes on the inside, and she becomes like more than she thought she could be for sure. I very, very much enjoyed the series, and I would have to say she's probably one of the most BA characters. She's ridiculously self-sufficient too, which I love in my characters. Next is the Lego Movie, a book that doesn't get the recognition it deserves. And for that, I'm going to say Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. Now, I think I read this last year, and for starters, it's a tearjerker, but it's such a good book. And I feel like it was talked about on BookTube for a really short while, and then everybody moved on to something else. And I'm like, wait a second, you guys, this was like an incredibly fantastic book. Let's go talk about it some more. So I would recommend the socks off this book. It was fantastic. It's a book about kind of what goes on during the World War II, but in Lithuania. I know we usually think of just Poland and we think of Germany when World War II, but we kind of forget some of these other countries that were also, you know, terrorized by the Russians and the Germans, and then they shipped them to Siberia, and that sucks too. So it's a great book. It's totally worth reading, and I don't want to give a lot away, but if you've read the history books, I think you know what happens. Let's hope. Next is Everwood, a book that you read before it was popular. Now, I have actually read a lot of books before they were popular, but the one I'm going to go with today is going to be Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Now, I think this book came out in like the mid-90s, and I think I read it in like maybe 2004. Yeah, about 2004, 2005 is when I read it. And I loved it. So, and there's 9 books. The 9th book is being written right now in the series, and they're all this thick or thicker. But they're very, very good books. They read pretty quickly. And there are some dry bits in like the 4th and 5th. I definitely like this one better, but it's a really fun series. It has time travel in it, and I am a sucker for time travel books. Basically, there's a woman named Claire who is a nurse, and she just got done nursing through World War II, so it's like 1945 and in England. And her husband's also British, and he was also in the war, so they were separated. So they come back together after the war for a second honeymoon in Scotland. And while they're in Scotland, she gets sucked back in time by some standing stones and is thrown back into the 1700s. And it's pretty different how women acted in the 1700s versus like 1940. And I would have to say she was ahead of her time for 1940 even. So it's a pretty good book. And then she gets picked up by some Highlanders. And that's all I'm really going to tell you. There's definitely some romance in this book. I'm not huge into romance, and there's quite a bit in here. But the historical fiction aspect of it was... I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I flew through this one and the second one and the third one really, really fast. And then I think I took a couple of years off, and then I continued to read. I have read the first 8. Obviously, the 9th one's not out yet. Definitely say that this is a book that is pretty popular now that I read 13 years ago. Next is Transformation. Name a book that has the best character development. And for this one, I'm actually going to go with Dumplin'. This is by Julie Murphy. And this is a book I read last year, and I very much enjoyed this book. Our main character is a fat girl, and she decides that she wants to do a beauty pageant. And people look at her like, you are going to do this beauty pageant? And I just loved her development through the whole thing. Not just like any sort of physical development, but everything from how to deal with like friends and boys and her personal life, and just how she evolves as a person. And then I just really enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing a character be strong and actually have change and not be the same person they were at the beginning of the book. I feel like it's easy to see a physical transformation in a character, but that internal transformation of no, they really did change. They really do deal with things differently. They really do view things differently. I think it's impressive when you can write that, make it believable, and stick to that, and basically make a new character. And I believe that there's going to be a second book. I don't know when it's coming out, but I will read that one because I liked the first one. Now this is where I started adding a few more things to the tag. The first one I have is The Magnificent Seven. Name a book that was so wonderful that you read it 7 times. Now you may be like, I've never read any book 7 times. Well, you need to find a book that's incredible and read it, and then read it 6 more times, because a good book is worth reading. For me, I'm going to go with Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. Now, again, this is a classic. It was written in the 40s, the 1940s, and it's a fantastic book. It is a book about the Civil War in the South, and it's from the perspective of a girl named Scarlett, who is the oldest of 3 daughters, and whose life is drastically changed because of the war, the Civil War. And you follow her through not all of her life, but a good chunk. She's about 16, 17 at the beginning of this, and by the end, I'd say she's in her mid to late 30s or so. Now you may be like, oh, I've seen that movie. The book is way better than the movie, because in the movie you kind of hate her at the end. You're like, well, she's actually a terrible person and I hate her. At the end of the book, you're like, I actually think she doesn't realize she's a terrible person, so I don't know if I can hate her, because Margaret Mitchell's a really, really, really great writer. This is a book I really have probably read 7 times. I think through high school I read it once a year, every year. And I read it so much, I literally have clear tape keeping this together, and I have chunks of the book that fall out. I do have a better copy of this, but this is the one with the best cover. So the next one I added was Passengers, a book that takes place mainly on a spaceship. For this one, I went with Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Now, technically it doesn't take place on a spaceship, it's a space station, but I'm going to go with this one. This book takes place kind of futuristic after like the aliens have tried to invade us and we fought them off, and we know they're going to be coming back again. So we are raising a army of kids to fight them, because kids have faster reflexes and they're smarter and all these other things. So they like want the smartest and the best kids, and Ender is chosen as the smartest and the best, even though he's super duper tiny guy, and he has to go and be in the space station basically and learn to be like an incredible soldier so that he can fight the buggers, which is what the aliens are called, and kill them all. And he's a child. So it's a really interesting book. I know that Orson Scott Card is a little controversial right now, but if we could just look at the work as a writer, maybe we can appreciate it for what it is. And it does take place mostly on a space station. And our last one is for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, because that is what's coming out this week. And I want to know a sequel that is just as good as the original. And for this, I'm going to go with The Queen of Babel in the Big City by Meg Cabot. Now, the first book is called Queen of Babel. The second one's Queen of Babel in the Big City, and the third one is Queen of Babel Gets Hitched. And I really enjoyed this book. I read it, I don't know how long ago, long time ago. And Lizzie's our main character, and basically her mouth gets her in trouble like all the time. And things just fall out, things she shouldn't say, things that just are not good. She has zero control. And I find that amusing because I have known to have some word vomit myself. So I can relate with this one. In the first book, I mean, I can tell you some things, but I can't tell you about the second book without ruining the first book, except that she goes to New York City. And her big mouth goes with her. And it is amusing, and it is fun, and it's clever, and it's very Meg Cabot-y, and it's kind of a romance, but at the same time, it's just a growing experience for the character, and it's a very quick read, and it's a very enjoyable read too. That is what I have for the Chris Pratt book tag. I'm going to encourage you to do this book tag too. I'm not really sure who to tag because I'm kind of new at this, so if you want to do this, boom, I tag you. please do the Chris Pratt book tag. Be sure to link it below because I want to see your guys' choices for everything as well. And you can tag me if you want to when you do your video, but also be sure to tag Riley Marie since she was the original creator of the tag. Let me know any thoughts that you have on any of the books that we talked about today. Let me know any comments you have or any questions. I'd love to answer questions about some of these books as well. If you liked this, please click the like. If you want to subscribe and be notified when I have videos, please click the subscribe as well. I look forward to seeing you guys next when I have another video up. Goodbye.